What's up, you guys? My name is Preston James, and you're listening to The Reflection, where we do just that on ourselves and our community so that we may lead a healthier, more positive, and productive lifestyle. This time on The Reflection, episode 3, we have a very special guest, Johanna Derbolowsky. Well, she'll be talking about her newly edited, new version of her book, The Transformation Promise. So I hope you enjoy, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in and showing some love and support. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it. All right. Today is special on episode 3. We have a guest, or I have a guest, Johanna Derbolowsky. And she is going to be going over her new edition, newly released book, The Transformation Promise. How you doing?
It's great to be here, Preston.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. Little history. We used to be neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. Lots happened. I've had a couple kids. Well, I guess I had Ella.
No?
Oh, I was moving out when
Yeah.
when we were pregnant. Yeah. So, and I had a second one. And yeah, it's been what, 3 years?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have I seen you once before this?
No.
Oh, wow.
Time flies.
Man, it does.
We've talked in between.
We have. Well, yeah, thank you for coming. Like I was telling you a little bit earlier, for the listeners too, that this podcast is the overarching goal is for the listeners and myself and you as well, is to set goals for ourselves and be productive and positive in our lifestyle and choices and the things that we do and the direction we're headed, excuse me, and put it back into the community, into the world. And hopefully, the hope is that catches on and other people do the same thing. I'd given an example in my introduction to the podcast that if you make somebody's day, right? If you give somebody a compliment and they smile and they're like, oh, thank you. Like, that feels really good, or I appreciate that. Like, you have this kind of good, positive feeling. It could literally change your whole day. Just like the opposite, if you had a person who cuts you off and flips you off on the road and you're on your way to work, and it's like, somehow that could almost fuck up your day, like if you let it, right?
Well, yeah, it could, but it shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't. But I guess what I'm saying is that that's what we're doing here. We're doing all things positive for a more positive lifestyle and productive lifestyle, and things that can point us in that direction. And I thought you would be a good guest to have on here because, well, The Transformation Promise, your book, it seems to be right down that alley.
Yeah. I love your idea of making things better, but if something upsets us, then it is there to help us grow. So my thing is really, I didn't come up with this. I heard it somewhere and I can't remember where, so I cannot give proper credit to this.
That's okay.
But to respond to everything that happens to you with, isn't it wonderful, or how cool is this? And when you do that, no matter what happens, somebody cuts you off on the freeway. Since we both live in LA, we know that's a big thing here.
It happens. Oh, it definitely happens.
Or somebody flips you off or so. You just go like, isn't that wonderful?
Okay.
And the moment you say that, if you're sincere about that, it's discharged. It doesn't get to you anymore. And if you can do it with really big things that bother you at the core, and you can still say, isn't that wonderful? Because you know that everything is there for a purpose, for a reason. Then you're not so upset when it happens. And right afterwards, you can say, okay, so why did that upset me initially little bit, Where did it irritate me? And you take it from there. You get to know yourself and you get to know your buttons. And your kids are still little, but as they get older, they know all your buttons.
Oh, man.
And they will push them.
Man, My daughter is starting to figure those out really well.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Kids usually figure that out right away, and then you become that keyboard they love to play on it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right. You know, I know I definitely figured out my mom's, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like what you said there, because that's another thing we like to incorporate here with the reflection is kind of just that. I think you just said what the name embodies is the reflection. You said, later I can find out why was I mad? Like, you reflect on that occurrence, that thing that has happened.
Yeah.
And so you say, why did that make me mad? I think that's a great thing. I think we should all reflect on things, especially even the good things. I think it's more common to focus on bad things, but even the good things that happens in our lives, like really, like, I can't believe that happened to me. This is so good, such a good day, or an opportunity came up. Like, it's good to reflect on those things. So,
yeah, when you have an emotional reaction to it one way or the other, it's good to figure out why you needed that to be happier.
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
you weren't that happy even before it happened.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree.
So it's, it's a growth process.
A growth. That, see, you're just hitting it all it's the same thing. And I'm really, as we're having this conversation, and I just told you a few minutes ago, this authenticity, that's what I want on this podcast for myself. I want the listeners to know, and from my guests, is this authenticity of just being yourself. And what you just said of this growth, and the growth mindset is what I've talked about before. And the growth mindset is this philosophy that comes from this lady named Carol Dweck, who I think she's a professor at Stanford. I don't know if she still is, but she was definitely there when she came up with this concept. But this growth mindset, I love it. I wish more people would think that way. And I think if we do think that way, we can grow. And it's, even if these quote unquote bad things happen to us, this positive, we infuse it with positivity and say, how is this going to help me grow? Right? Even if it is, like I said, quote unquote, a bad experience. How can I grow from this?
Well, any kind of bad experience is a good reason for
for growth. Yeah.
Growth, or I call those growth periods. When you're in a growth period, things are really rather painful usually, and you're up against yourself. When you're growing as a teenager, when your bones grow, I don't know if you remember that, your legs hurt. You'll notice that, with your kids too, that there are actually growing pains in the body, but there are also growing pains in the soul and the mind and the way we interact here. So I think if you constantly work on yourself, that's the best thing you can do, but it's also, you're doing community service.
How so?
And
I like that.
Well, because when you work on yourself, you better everything. Because this is essentially just your experience. So if your experience is a good one, and if you are, if you get rid of your hate or your judgments of others, you first of all show everybody that it's possible to do that, which is not an easy thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, judgments come easy.
Yeah. I have to catch myself all the time.
Yeah, so when you work on that, you make that possible. Also, you become a much more balanced person. And so the world is already better, and you show other people this is how you can deal with it. So, I mean, you're also a teacher, so people go through a lot of stuff.
Yes, definitely.
And, understanding their feelings and getting to know themselves. And we can never really look at ourselves objectively because we're the subject.
It's hard, right?
So when you look at yourself, you go like, well, that's not really how it is,
Yeah, no, definitely.
So it's a fast talking yourself out of it. It happens so fast, you can't even think that fast.
Yeah.
And you have the right excuses ready for yourself, why this is not really true for yourself. So when you start reflecting on yourself more and going inward and really seeing like, well, it's there somewhere, what I should have done differently or better, or mostly just differently. And you work on yourself, everybody else can do it too.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head again, which it just encouraged me to keep having this conversation too. It's like, especially the people that you're around, like your friends and your family, they're going to be affected, right? They see it with you because they see you every day, or at least more often than a stranger does. Even your coworkers, I guess I should say. I guess those are people who, like for me, I see them more than I do like my mom who lives in a different state. But I guess if they see this this transformation with me and how I kind of reflect on things and let things bounce off in a positive way, then they're like, oh, then I can do it too. Or it encourages them to want to think differently, possibly. And you're right. I think it does. I think it's contagious. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It is contagious, and also when you remove the buttons from your keyboard,
Yeah.
nobody needs to push them anymore.
Yeah.
So it's already better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So everybody that irritates you is actually your best friend because they're helping you grow. So as soon as somebody really irritates you, you should think, thank you.
That's an interesting way to look at it. That's very interesting. I like that, though.
I didn't know this about myself. I'm going to work on that. And that's why I think it's community service to work on yourself.
I like that. It's community service to work on yourself. Yeah, and you flip it. You flip the script, right? Instead of this negative thing, you've just flipped it to a positive thing of self-growth, which also, in turn, is hopefully affecting others to grow as well.
Well, yeah, that, and then, it's your experience. So if that's no longer irritating to you, it doesn't need to be there anymore. So you are changing the world. And, I'm telling people, if there's nobody in your environment, if you live alone in the woods somewhere and you don't have anybody that's helping you grow, just pick up a newspaper. There's enough stories in there that irritate you. And as soon as it irritates you, there's something inside of you that it corresponds to.
Okay.
And you said before, when something bad happens to you, nothing bad happens to you. Something happens to you. But it's your mind that then goes into, oh, this was bad or this was good. And then it's in that category and it goes down the hill from there.
Yeah, yeah.
But really, it's just something happened.
I think I was just reading, and my philosophy dabbles. I was just reading, I don't know if it was Heidegger or Hegel or something like that, but it's like, it doesn't, or maybe it was Nietzsche, but basically you're right. Like things, it's not bad or good. It's just things happen. Like life happens. Like it's not necessarily, it's our context and our response to the world and our world and how we see the world to where we categorize it as good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah, which then, kind of limits it. Because something bad cannot really be something good at the same time, but it is. And, we have fears and stuff, but they're always based on our past experiences. And our judgments also are based on our past experiences. So they're not really valid anymore. Because if you want to move forward into something new, then you shouldn't hold on to the experiences from the past that tell you like, oh, be afraid. Oh, this is horrible. And I work in my coaching with people in producing like change in their life, people that want to produce a change in their life. Mm-hmm. And I was working with one person that I did some quantum shifting with, and he wanted to go into his own business, but he couldn't quite get that confidence together to do it, to leave his paycheck and his job.
That stability, right? That certainty.
Well, yeah,
right?
And also then there's family with it that also needs that. So becoming aware of all the players in the room is like, you have to know who all is attached to whatever issue it is you want to grow out of or grow into or what you want to do different. And then make your decision. But so he kind of really wanted to move on and go out on his own and in his own business. And the next day he got fired.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
to somebody that would have been really bad, but he called everybody and he was like, guess what? It was really awesome.
Okay.
I just couldn't quite, get up the courage, and here I was,
Yeah.
the universe did it for me.
I'm a strong believer in that, in the universe. Like you put those thoughts out there, you put it into existence, right? What's the saying where you, like, I don't know, like see it to believe it, but no, that's not the one I'm looking for. But anyways, that's basically it. Like
Well,
you've
it's
put
also
it.
either believe it and then you see it.
Yeah. No, but he thought about it so much and speak it into existence. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence. So he thought about it. He talked with you.
Yeah, and
right?
we did some quantum shifting.
Some
which
quantum
was fun.
shifting, which I want to ask you about, but some quantum shifting. And the next day he got fired. And it's like, you said the universe. I believe that everything happens for a reason, but I also, very similar to holistic, and I mean like holy, like the Quran and the Bible and holistic text, is that if you ask for it, you shall receive it. It's more like, for me, I see it as, like, I support that, but I'm saying like I see it as you're putting it out into the universe. And if you want it so badly and you're taking the steps in that direction, you're talking about it, you're dabbling, you're looking in that direction of things in that direction, and the universe will help you and give you that boost. And for him, it sounds like he got the right boost.
Well, yeah, it will do that when it's the right thing for you, because there's an overriding soul power or spirit power. And you can just get everything right about manifesting and putting it out there and wanting the universe to give it to you. But if it's not the right thing for you, you'll not get it.
Do you know the author Stephen Pressfield?
No, I don't.
So he wrote a book called The War of Art. And he was in here. He did an interview with somebody in my studio. And he talked about how it's not us. Right? When we have these creative bursts or these things that happen to us, that sometimes it's not us. It's something else. Like, I don't want to say extraterrestrial. I want to say like, what's the word I'm looking for? Divine, something divine.
Yeah, it's the source energy, divine energy, whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
It's like what I just... we're the instrument, but somebody else is playing it or is...
Yes. That's what Pharrell says, the producer, who now is like, I think he's the lead designer for Louis Vuitton, but he also says that. It's like, you're just the instrument. When he was making music, or when he does, he says, I'm the instrument. It goes through me, and you don't get to choose when it comes. But when it comes, you need to sit down and write, or make your music, or whatever it is, or start engineering, like for me, I work on a song, or paint your picture, draw your whatever, but it's working through you. The universe is working through you. So that's good. I'm curious to know, is this individual in his business now? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good for him. Look at that.
Yeah, but I mean, that was more as a sort of an example of what we judge as good or bad.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah.
It's like to somebody that's
good,
to
good.
somebody that's bad.
Yeah.
But if you can have that attitude, and that's one thing that I see a lot when I work with people. We're so afraid of change.
Yes.
That when the change happens, whether it is good or bad, we immediately want to go back.
So what's comfortable, right?
Yeah, to what we know. Mm-hmm. Because everything that we don't know is scary.
Very much so.
Even though we never know anything.
It's right. No, it's so true. My next episode is... like I think I told you, it's called Taking Chances / Risk Analysis. But you're right, you don't know, but you have to take the risk depending on, like, what do you want to do? Like, I think you just mentioned it as well. He had to kind of take into account the things that his job, like who depended on him and what kind of, like, he had to take that risk or take that leap. But he also had to calculate and think about his circle.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's, what I talk about in the book a lot. You have to really get to know yourself and figure out what makes you tick a certain way.
Yeah.
And so a big part of I divided people up in structures, so which obviously we're not just one thing or another, but we know we're the body on one side, which is the easiest one to deal with because we just know how it functions for the most part, and it's tangible. And then, if you can't run, you know that, and you know how to get around it. But then you have the mental emotional structure, which is your friends, your infrastructure, your job, your environment, and that's a lot more tricky because more things that we're not really aware of when we want to make a change, a lot more things play into that. Like, you have 2 kids now. This affects how you make a decision.
Absolutely.
So you can't just say, okay, I'm taking off for Australia now.
I know, right? Yeah.
And I may never come back. That's not going to happen. I mean, you could do it, but I'm sure
There's
that
consequences,
wouldn't go,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
over really well.
No.
But and not even with you because
No,
you
I
do
love my
want to
kids.
see your kids.
Yeah.
So, but there's also other things. It might be that you need to have a certain amount of money for the rent now that before it wasn't that important to have. But if you're stuck in a job that's making you sick, you get burned out, you hate it, then you can see, is that actually worth the price that I'm paying for that? So when you get a lot of clarity about all that, it's easier to make a shift and to transform into something new.
The Transformation Promise.
Yeah, well, that was an easy title because we can never stay the same, so it is a promise.
Yeah.
So transformation will always happen.
Is that did it just come to you, or how did you come up with the title?
I was just meditating, and then that came to me, and with the thought that that's a good title because everything will always transform. So you can easily make that a promise because
Okay.
you'll keep it.
Yeah. All right. And so how long did the book take you from start to finish, to publishing? When you sat down, you hit your first keystroke to when it was on the shelf? How long was that process?
Probably about a year.
Okay. So that's not too bad, right? I hear stories of people, a few years.
I was expecting it to be faster.
Okay.
But I had some issues of writer's block in between, and then not knowing which way to go. And then I did this marvelous thing. I hired an editor that was totally not from my field of work. So she would send me back my stuff and say, like, I don't get it. Like, can you explain this? And so when you're in your own mind, you know what you're saying. And obviously you understand what you're talking about.
Definitely. Yes. I struggle with that with my middle school students. I do. I really do.
Yeah. And I thought I was completely clear about everything. But having an editor that was not at all from any kind of, she was a novelist and a fiction rap writer.
Okay.
And editor of those kind of works. So working with her was really amazing because it gave me a lot of clarity. Because when you have to explain things, you learn them better, you become more clear. So it was wonderful working with her. So that made it a lot longer process, but it also made the book a lot better.
No, that's good. And that's interesting you say that. One of the things we say in teaching is, or actually, it's applicable to anything, but if you can teach it, then that means you know it, right? So, and I say that because I have my students who get done with something quicker than others, and they start getting bored and they want to do something. I'm like, well, go help so-and-so with it. And then I see them struggle for a second, and then they realize I kind of work through it. I see the process happening, and then they explain it to them. And it's like, because like what you said, you know what you did, but like explaining that process to somebody else, either just even getting it into words can be a challenge, right? Even just that, simply just from your head to your mouth is just not always the easiest. So I could see that, and I think that's a good approach. Good. Now I'm like thinking about me saying good and bad. Now I'm like, but no, I think that's a cool approach, and I think that was a smart decision.
Yeah, and it was really amazing working with her. But at times I was a little bit attached to her schedule.
Yeah.
And there were just periods of times when she said, I can't work for a few weeks. We'll continue when I'm available again.
Oh, wow.
And after we were finished with the book, we got together, and she got really terminally ill during the process. And she said working on the book really helped her get through everything.
Cool.
And so it was also a really nice thing to learn that the book was actually useful to somebody while I was writing it.
Man, that's awesome.
And so she was really very grateful and passed away like shortly after.
I'm sorry, that's tough. But that feels really good to hear. That one of my questions I was going to ask you was about you helping people, and because I know that the title it's a book about love, healing, and the flow of life, and the healing part I was curious about, but I think it just kind of explained itself that she, although she was terminally ill, but it kind of fueled this sense of, it sounds like acceptance, like she was going through something and she kind of, I don't know, that's what it feels like when you said that. That's what it felt like to me. Like she was like, okay, like I'm navigating this unknown path, this unknown, and this made it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to go down that path eventually.
Yeah.
But they say you can't live until you're ready to die, because that makes, when you're not afraid of death anymore, then you can really live.
Mm-hmm.
But the healing part in the book is about really getting to know yourself and also getting to love yourself, which is really important. And
Absolutely. I agree.
a lot of people do not do that.
No, and one of the things I've talked about too briefly, and as the podcast flourishes and goes on and continues, social media makes it really hard for people to, I feel like, love themselves, because it has this Hollywood effect. Like, this is what daily life looks like, and this is what people really do on a daily basis, and this is what they really look like. And it's like, that's not true. That's not like right. People will take 1,000 pictures to get that one angle right, to make it look like this is what they look like all the time. And you see it. We see it at a glimpse, and we go, "Oh, I don't look that good. I can't." Like, you compare yourself, right? And we do this, like, I feel like subconsciously. It's like if we don't look a way that fits the way that we feel like we should look, based off of how other people look, I know it's kind of hard to follow, then it's not good enough. Like, we can't, until we get that right picture, to get that right image of ourselves that we think fits how it should be put out into the world and perceived by other people.
Yeah, and I mean, we all want to be perceived in a positive way.
Yeah,
in a good way. So we all have that naturally, I think, a little bit. And when we go out there and when we have to, I mean, you want to get dressed in the morning and look somewhat presentable. Before you leave your house. But the whole idea of holding on to these images is making it very hard for the person itself. I mean, for kids, I think it's terrible to have to constantly compare and see, like, oh my God, and they can have this and they make all this money and they have all this and I have nothing. So the values are kind of getting screwed up.
Yeah, I see a lot in middle school. And, middle school is probably the roughest area. I think everybody can agree.
Yeah.
In any country, any culture, that age range is nightmarish. It just is. From 11 years old to 14, that developmental period, puberty, all that stuff is just, it's a mess. And you're right. You say that, and it's the image and the way that the things they say to each other about the way they look, or just all these things about how someone is dressed. And it's just, it's far beyond what I feel like the average person would say to another person that's, I don't know what I'm trying to say, a normal person, because I feel like they're not normal people. They're middle school people. But they do. They just degrade each other in like this very bad way that just makes someone feel really low about themselves. And when you say that, it's like they put each other down, and then it makes them question things even more about themselves.
Yeah, but that's because they don't love themselves. Because if you love yourself, you don't have to put anybody else down.
Yeah, and you know, though hopefully the hope is that they can get there, right? And like you said, I think a lot of people struggle with that even at any age.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can navigate them, or steer them, I guess I should say, for my kids to love themselves. Like, you're an awesome person. You look fine. You are the way you are. You need to love yourself for who you are and what you have, right? I talk about that in my introduction. I want people to be comfortable with who they are. I think it's very important. Like you're saying, a lot of things you say line up with how I want to proceed with this podcast and put out into the world. It's just, you have to, that's all you got. Who you are and what you got, that's what you got. So you need to learn to love yourself. And I think that the fact that your book talks about that is awesome. Do you think that people should, what's a thing that you talk about with loving yourself? What's something that, how do you talk about that in your book?
Well, I have like, on one point I talk about how you look at other people. Mm-hmm. For example, if you saw an old lady walk down the street and she tripped and she fell and there's nobody else around, you'd go over, you'd help her.
Hopefully, yeah, right. Yeah,
well,
hopefully.
Yeah, I hope you would do that.
Yeah.
That you would help her up and you would tend to her. You know, you would say, oh, are you, hurt? Can I help you in some way? Or whatever it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So let's say this is a total stranger. You've never seen her before. But if you yourself tripped and fell, your thought would be, what am I, a stupid idiot? Couldn't you, You immediately go into bashing yourself.
Yourself, yeah.
So the idea is you're looking at a person that you don't even know and you're really kind to that person, but you're not doing the same to yourself.
I like that.
And when you start, I use the example, just pick the person or the animal or whatever it is that you love most in your life. And when you're in a tough situation, look at what you would do if that would happen to that person. And what would you do? You would probably say, it's okay. Hey, I'm your best friend. I'm right here for you. And not go like, what, you dumb? What's wrong with you?
You're such an idiot.
Yeah.
I know, I've done that. I don't know. Yeah. Multiple times. I can think about different occurrences throughout my life.
So that's one thing where we really do that. We hurt ourselves all the time. We label ourselves. We like, oh, your nose is I should get a nose job. Mm-hmm. That's like the thing.
There it is again with the social media. I'm telling you that it's hard, especially for kids.
Yeah, or just the body thing is ridiculous to no end. But
especially for women,
the old people are, they're really putting it out there with all their facelifts and this and that because it's just so horrible to look old. And I'm from Germany and
ageism.
I watch German television every now and then.
Oh, okay.
And I was just talking about that yesterday with somebody, and I said, you watch a crime show in German, like a German one, those people look like actual cops, they look like normal people. Their teeth are not straight, and they,
You're an average person.
Balding and whatever.
Yeah.
And you watch one here, they all look perfect. They all have like perfect teeth. They all have like perfect everything else.
That's the Hollywood effect. That's the, yeah.
So if I go down to the police department, wherever I live, none of them look like the TV ones look.
Yeah.
So it's constantly,
That's
we're
tough.
constantly with this new image, confronted with this better image, and now that we can change everything with AI to make it even more perfect.
Oh man,
it's not even the person anymore. And I think a lot of them look totally grotesque. I mean, I see people and I look at them and I think like, wow, you can't possibly think that that looks good.
Yeah. No, I've seen some of that as well. You know, so as I've posted, when you post videos on YouTube, you can do a thumbnail that is like the main picture for the video. So as I've made my thumbnails recently, I'll take a picture just like me by myself and then doing like a thumbs up or like a big smile or whatever. So Vanessa was showing me how to do all these things in Photoshop because she's a lot better with Photoshop than I am. And I've learned a lot recently, but she showed me the makeup brush or that or whatever. And I sat there, Johanna, I swear, and I was like, this is addicting. I was like trying to make myself look perfect. And I wasn't even like, I didn't think about that. I'm very comfortable with myself. But when I knew I could fix something on a screen to put in front of other people, I was like, oh, I could do away with this. No, this could be a little smoother. No, let's get rid of that right there. And I started, and I was like, I stopped, and I was like, I got to get up. I went and talked to her, and she was in the other room, and I said, this is a problem. I was like, this is a rabbit hole. I got to stop right now. So I had to catch myself, but I can only imagine that that's how people feel.
Luckily, I'm not that good in technology because that would be the same thing. I would look like, oh my God, I need to change this. I need to change that. And, my mother, as she got older, when she came to visit here, she said, oh, America's horrible. There are mirrors everywhere. And people here don't notice it, but there are mirrors everywhere here, and they're big.
Oh, I have not even...
long mirrors at the closet doors and in every hallway and bathroom. And so she said, I don't like coming here because I constantly see this old woman in the mirror.
Oh, man.
And she said, when I'm at home, I just have, one mirror for important things in the morning to do. And then I'm just the 35-year-old person that I think I am.
Okay.
But when I come here, you can't go 5 minutes without seeing a mirror. And there's always this old woman looking at me, and I don't know who she is.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I know that I tell my students, they always ask how old I am, of course, right? They're very blunt, too. Middle school, that age, they're they'll ask you some questions you would think are super rude, which they are, but they don't know yet. They're figuring it out. That's part of the age. But they ask how old I am, and I'll say, how old do you think I am? And they'll say, I don't know if they're trying to be nice, right? But most of the time they'll say late 20s, 29, and some will say early 30s. And I'm like, oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I tell them, I truly feel like I'm in my mid to early 20s. That's what I feel like. I'm 38, but I feel like I'm in my, like, oh, mister, you look young. And I'm like, thank you. I'm like, because I feel like I look younger because I drink lots of water and I worked out and I still work out. And I feel like that contributes to, it's not like that was my goal, but I think that contributes to a healthier look. But at the same time, I get that if you're looking at yourself all the time and you see yourself, you're reminded. And I've had that recently where I'm just like, you're a dad. Like this whole dad complex has come. Like, you're a dad. You don't get to work out as much anymore. It's like, I am older. And it's like really kind of sat in. It's like sinking in more and more. And not in a bad way, but just more of like a realization kind of way. Right? And I think it's neither bad nor good. It's just, it kind of is, but it's interesting to reflect on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's okay to look older, but I wouldn't want to look at it all the time either.
Yeah, no, right? Yeah.
It's like, because it does affect how you feel. And as a dad, you work out a lot more than you think. Because you play with the kids, you throw them around. That's just like going to the gym.
I don't. Well, that's funny. The other day I was carrying up some water from the grocery store and I was like lifting it on the way up the stairs. I swear, because I was like, let me get something in real quick. But you're right. I do. I run around with them all the time, and that's fun. It is fun. And it's a little workout too.
Yeah.
I was looking at one of my questions on here, and there's a quote. It says, "This book provides practical steps and tools to create positive change." What's an example of a tool that can create this positive change?
Forgiveness. So what holds us back is holding a grudge. And well, when you judge somebody, if you hold a grudge and you judge somebody, whenever you judge somebody, you you change your energy to that person, to that which you don't like. So you become that.
Yeah, I agree.
So when you forgive and you let go, then you can, you become lighter because you don't carry that much baggage with you. And you also can move on from that. So I think forgiveness is the biggest tool we have to get ahead, to be happier. If you can't forgive, then, you'll always be in the problem.
Yeah, I was thinking of, there's a Drake song. I love Drake, but there's a Drake song that he says something about forgive and forget. But I always tell people, I try to always forgive. I forgive you for that. Like, don't worry about it. It's all good, but I'll never forget that you did that. Like, if you did something to kind of screw me over or something of that nature, I'll forgive you. Like, it's all good. No worries. But I'm not going to forget that. So I'm not going to trust you again. And I'm not going to, right? Like, moving forward, I've learned from that. And I think that's important too, to learn from those occurrences that happen in your life with people that you forgive. And I think you're right. I think
But
that
if you
is.
truly forgive, then you would, possibly do something with that person again. If they've
Oh,
also
so you
learned,
see it like that? Okay.
if they've also learned. I mean, it's of course if they stayed the same, you
Oh
you don't want to get burned
no,
2 or 3 times.
no,
So
because
that'll be just
what's that saying? First time, shame on you, right?
the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, first time, shame
Shame
on
on
you.
you.
Second time or third time, shame on me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But the thing is, what people don't realize is that if you, hate somebody,
That's a strong word,
the
too.
hate is you. They don't care. Most of the time they don't care. They don't even know you anymore.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're even dead. People hold on to grudges from dead people. But if you hate somebody, your energy is hate. So you become that. Now, is that person worth that?
Not at all.
So then forgiveness is the best thing, and to also realize that I love Ho'oponopono. That's like my favorite thing, and that's one of the tools that I describe in there. And
What is it now?
it's a Hawaiian healing method.
Okay, and how did you say it again?
Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono. Okay.
And
that's a Hawaiian healing method?
yeah.
Okay.
Or belief system, or but it's the best thing I think ever came across in how to forgive, where you look at it from, this is your movie. If something, if somebody does something to you, they're part of your movie.
The characters.
Yeah. So you created this. You put them in that position. I just had that
Like you're the director.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just had that conversation with somebody that had endured a lot of abuse.
Physical?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I can't forgive that. And then it's like, of course I've forgiven and let go after a while. But not really. And I said, well, it's unforgivable. It doesn't change that person. If it just changes you, because you're living in that day in, day out. And so we turned that around. I said, if you love yourself the way you are now, then there's no problem with what happened to you before to get you there. So if you are really happy where you are today and you love yourself, then everything that happened to you contributed to this moment.
I just talked about that.
So then there's no problem with the person. I said, so the other thing is then you have to think of it this way. You created this person to be an abuser. That means that he had to go through a lot of, tough life terrible childhood, whatever, happened, to become this person that is so mean and horrible.
Yeah.
So if you're the director, you wrote that rather unattractive role.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
So it's even more that you don't forgive them. You ask them to forgive you for giving them that bad role in your life story.
Oh, wow.
When you can do that and you can see that, then you can truly forgive. But also you step out of the victim role, you become...
Like it's almost like you have the power.
Yeah. And I love to, like in the book, I use the example, the very famous Jesus story. In order to show the world that there is, life after death and whatever, love conquers all, he had to go through that. He had to have somebody that prosecutes him. He had to have people that nail him to the cross.
Mm-hmm.
He had to have the angry mob to create this huge global event that will later teach people a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So all those characters were needed for that. And
yeah.
let's say you're in the meeting room before you enter into this life, and you go like, wow, okay, so I really want to have these experiences because they'll teach me this and this and this. And so the roles are going to divide it up, and there's the role of the loving mother that's always there, and so everybody goes like, yeah, I'll do that. And then there's the person that, does something, sells you drugs, or does something really horrible to you. And whatever it is, gets you into a lot of pain for some reason or another. And all of a sudden the room is quiet because these are your soulmates. These are your friends. This is your soul group. Nobody wants to be the jerk.
Yeah, yeah.
So now you go like, well, but I really, really want those experiences. I really need to push through this. I really want to, learn all these things to become this great person that can help other people and all that. Of course, at that point, you don't have a body and you don't know what it's going to feel like. But you're doing that. And then, finally, your very best friend said, okay, if you really want to do this, I'll do that for you. Because that is a really horrible role. That's a different way of looking at it.
Man.
So all of a sudden, all those people that were really terrible to you were
written into your story.
Your closest soul allies before you came here. So whether or not it happens like that doesn't matter. But what matters is that all of a sudden you can let go.
Yeah, perspective.
Yeah. So it changes how you look at things.
No, and I think that matters. I know that matters, of how you look at things. It really does.
And, when I was young, I was in the attitudinal healing certification program. And that was Jerry Jampolsky, who's an amazing man. And he wrote a book, Love is Letting Go of Fear. This is a long time ago, but the book is still great. But he was, it was a big auditorium with lots of people, and he started having all these support groups to help people heal. And one of his groups were Holocaust survivors. Mm. And he was Jewish, and he said in that room, he said, well, you should forgive Hitler. And everybody was upset. I mean, it was...
Oh, I bet.
And of course, I was German, and I was shrinking in my seat.
It's like sliding down. Yeah.
People got really angry, really upset. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, a lot of people left, and they said, how can you say that? You're Jewish. How can you say something like that?
Yeah.
And he just stood up there and he said, well, Hitler doesn't really care if I forgive him or not, because he's dead. Doesn't make any difference in his life anymore whether I forgive him or not. But it makes a difference in my life whether I want to live it in hating somebody or just move on and forgive. So that was that stuck with me. That was a big experience. How easily he said that and made it a point that often the people that we hate or have a grudge with or whatever, they don't care. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're right.
they may
Yeah.
not even know us anymore, not recognize us if we walk down the street, but we're still thinking like,
Yeah, it makes me think of, I have this, what do I want to call him? Like a bully, like in high school. Obviously I won't say his name, but I always think about him and just like how much I've just like, bro, I will fuck you up if I see you. Like I have this whole mentality, right? But I'm just like, I don't care. Like I know that I really don't care, but there's that part of me that it's like I hold on to. That's just like, because they really affected you in a way. But like I over all this, what really I want people to understand, and I try to push out into the world as well, is that yes, all these experiences have made you who you are. And if you love the person you are now, then that's what helped mold you into the person that you are.
yeah.
And I personally, I love who I am. I love where I'm at. I'm doing the thing I want to do, the things I want to do, and still going. And it's all because of the things that have happened to me throughout my life. And there's going to be an episode where I talk about opportunity, because opportunity has knocked at my door multiple times, and I've taken almost all of them. And that also has created those experiences, which has led me to be the person I am. But I hold on to that still. And it's a little thing that I hold on to. And I can't think of anything else except for that person in my life. When you started talking about Hitler, and I was like, I can only imagine. I bet it made the people mad. But I know.
Yeah, I can too.
Right? But I understand where he's coming from. I see that. And that can't be easy, especially if you were actually Holocaust survivors. Like, I can't even imagine. But I get where he's coming from. I get that perspective of, like, he doesn't care. Hitler, he's gone. So
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with him anymore.
It's not making him suffer because your bully person, you thinking that doesn't probably do anything to him.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. But that's a good transition. I know we've been here for a minute, but I think that's a great thing for positive change. By the way, just to circle back on that, is forgiveness. To create good, even consistent positive change moving forward in your life, to remember that. So,
Yeah.
So what inspired you? What was your inspiration to write this book?
I was teaching a lot of workshops, and then
workshops. Now let me just kind of sidestep on that. So what kind of workshops?
Workshops on intuition and psychic development.
Okay.
And transformation. And then I would have handouts that I write for it. And one time, people...
Like little paragraphs or...
Yeah, like just a few pages after like a seminar that you get to take home, or worksheets to work through and...
reflect on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
So something to take home. And then one of the people in one of my workshops said, well, it would be better if you had a book. And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, well, how long would it take you to write a book? And I said, well, I have all these worksheets and,
Did you keep all of them up to that point?
Yeah, well, I taught all sorts of different classes over the years, on prosperity and forgiveness and everything. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll probably just have to throw them together.
Mm-hmm.
And I left, and then I had another workshop booked in another town 4 months later. And he just called me up and he said, well, I hope you're putting that together, because I booked you for a book reading in a bookstore right after that workshop.
Oh, okay.
And I said...
Surprise.
What?
Surprise.
I said, I don't have a book yet. And he said, well, you said it's easy. You just throw it together. And so that's...
He took it literally.
Yeah. So that was the beginning, and I had a totally different book in mind, and I started, and it didn't go anywhere, and then I decided...
So you trashed that one? No? Did you take pieces from that, I'm assuming?
Yeah, but the way I had it organized and everything, it wasn't, so I like, oh my God, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And then, I sat down again and I created an outline and did it the way, writers do it and started. And I did it mostly at Starbucks because I had to get out of my house to not be distracted by other things to do, which
Man,
is so easy.
That's a whole different discussion, but you're right. This distractions and procrastination. Oh my gosh. If I couldn't come to the studio and do things, man, especially with my kids at home,
Yeah.
I wouldn't get half the stuff done.
Yeah, so that was the same for me. So I decided to go to Starbucks when they still had, places where you can sit inside.
Yeah, this is not a paid promotion.
So I had I had my time, I had 2 hours a day set aside to do that. And I would go there and I'd sit down and I open my computer and I would start. And some days nothing would come, but I would keep my 2 hours.
Oh, look, see, that's setting a goal, pursuing your goal, and being consistent with, like, you had this vision and you did it, though. You did, even if you weren't sure if anything would come to you, you still went. Did you go at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay, so you went the same time every day, or?
Well, I had 2 hours every day,
See that? Yeah.
to fit into my schedule. So
But
it
even
wasn't
that-
always the same time, but I would say I would go for 2 hours. I'd be at Starbucks.
Yes.
And have a maximum of 2 coffees during that time.
Okay, because you set a limit. Okay, so you had to, so you have these.
So I couldn't have more distractions of, I got to get something else.
Yeah, but you did that. You set these goals and you did it.
Well, I took that a little bit further. So when I didn't come up with anything, I would just write blah, blah, blah.
Literally.
Yes.
Okay.
Like pages of it.
What is The Shining?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right? Jack is a dull boy or whatever, yeah. That's what it reminded me
So,
of.
after like a couple of pages, so that gets pretty boring.
I bet.
And then, eventually a thought would come in, usually like an hour and 50 minutes into it.
Oh, the last 10 minutes, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So then I would, had to extend my time, which was okay because then things would really flow. But I wouldn't let myself not write during that time.
That's so awesome. That's exactly what I want to express in this podcast too. And talking about those things, you did that. And people have to go through these things. Like we talked about earlier, kind of circling back to that, is it was moving through you. It wasn't ready. And then when it came, it was like something, and then you just started writing and you just said it again to kind of put the icing on the cake is you would stay even longer because it would start flowing. So once it came, you were like, well, I'm not just going to stop now that my 2 hours or my set is time,
Yeah.
you kept it going. So it's like, if I said, I'm going to do it for 2 hours, but if it starts an hour and 59 minutes in and you got 1 minute left on your 2 hour block, you can't stop. You got to let it go. It's moving through you.
Yeah, no, there was not unless I had something urgent to do or so.
Yeah, well, no, of course.
There was
but
no time limit, but the 2 hours was mandatory.
yes, that's
So that
important.
was not negotiable.
That's a discipline. That's important.
So, so that was fun. And after a while, that I wouldn't have that many pages of, this is stupid, I don't know what to write.
Blah, blah, blah.
And I would really write things like that and like, oh my God, never going to get to do this. Just write it out until there was nothing left to say about why I can't do it.
Yeah. God, that's awesome. That's encouraging. Hopefully that's encouraging to other people, which I'm sure it will be, because everyone struggles with that thing that they want to do, but they don't know how to get started, or they have the writer's block or something comes up. I know it happens with me with making music and working on music. I get the block and I'm just like, I don't even know what to do with this song anymore. Like, I don't know how to finish it. And then hearing other people struggle or their process, I know helps me. So I know this is definitely going to help people. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I had a really good art teacher in art classes. And when you stand in front of like a blank canvas or a blank piece of paper, and, one time I was just like, I don't know how to do this. And he said, just, put your brush into the red paint. Okay, now draw a line in the middle of it. Oh, he goes like, yeah, well, the canvas is obviously ruined now, so you can go start doing something with it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to look at it too. Again, perspective.
Yeah, because it's not, fresh, new, and has to be something special anymore. So you can now let all that perfection go down the drain and start working.
Man, there we are again, going back to that perfection. We want it to be the best it can be, whether it's a picture, a painting, a book. Man, we kind of put our limits on ourselves, like kind of put ourselves in a box sometimes. I know I do it. So
Yeah, but it's the imperfections that make you beautiful.
man, and I hear that all the time too, and you're so right. But it's so hard for us to like really kind of let that sink in. Like it's like we know it, but you're right. You're right, and I hope
I
that.
mean, when you look at photography or so, and especially portraits, you can really see it's the interesting faces are always it's the imperfections
that makes the person, yeah, right. I know there's a famous one of this guy who's doing people's faces up front, like really close. I remember he did Barack Obama, and I remember seeing that, and I could just see like, I don't know, I guess maybe because I knew who Barack Obama was, that I could just see him in all of his glory, like in his face. Like I could just see everything. But that guy really captured it, and you're right, it does. All those imperfections made it
that
perfect.
makes it, that's what makes it interesting. Like symmetry doesn't make it interesting.
Now, we'll wrap this up, but so it's on Amazon. Your book's on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. It's on my website. It's on all other bookstores. You can get it anywhere.
What's your website?
quantumheartfield.com or thetransformationpromise.com.
Oh, okay. Thetransformationpromise.com.
Yeah.
I think that's the one I had looked at.
Yeah.
And you can get it. It's Audible too, right? You can listen to it, book on tape. They don't even say that anymore. Books on tape. I don't think people say that.
It's not on tape anymore.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's what we used to say. Books on tape. So cool. Well, gosh, man, I really thank you for coming by today.
Well, thank you for having me here. It was amazing and always wonderful to catch up with you.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully, I'm gonna hopefully read your book soon. And do you have any plans of putting another book out or?
Yeah, I do, but it will be on a totally different subject.
Okay, cool. All right, positive. I'm assuming positivity.
Yeah.
Good. We love it. All right. Well, thanks, Johanna. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you.
All right, you guys. My name is Preston James, and you're listening to The Reflection. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And next time, my next episode is, what did I say? Taking chances and risk analysis.